For 30 years, Johnny Carson invited America into his late-night living room. As host of The Tonight Show, he interviewed over 22,000 guests, from nervous newcomers to Hollywood legends. But among those thousands, Carson privately maintained a much shorter list, the rare guests who didn't just perform for his audience, but genuinely connected with the man behind the desk. Johnny was the ultimate professional, explained a former Tonight Show producer who worked with Carson for 15 years. But there were certain guests who could make him forget the cameras were rolling. When they visited, Johnny wasn't hosting anymore. He was simply enjoying himself. At the very top of Carson's list was Jimmy Stewart, the man who made him cry. When Jimmy Stewart appeared on The Tonight Show, viewers witnessed something remarkable. Johnny Carson, television's unflappable master of ceremonies, transformed into an appreciative fan in the presence of genuine Hollywood royalty. Jimmy was everything America wanted to believe about itself. Carson once confided to a close friend, decent, humble, authentic, the real deal in an industry full of phonies. Stewart's appearances became annual events, eagerly anticipated by both the audience and Carson himself. Unlike many aging stars who relied on well-rehearsed anecdotes, Stewart brought a natural, sometimes hesitant quality to his interviews that Carson found refreshingly authentic. Johnny respected that Jimmy never tried to be slick, explained a former Tonight Show producer. He stumbled over words sometimes. He paused to find the right expression. He was just being himself, not performing Jimmy Stewart. What truly cemented Stewart's place as Carson's favorite was a now legendary 1981 appearance when he read his poem about the death of his beloved golden retriever. The heartfelt verses caused Carson, famous for his emotional restraint, to visibly tear up on national television. "I've never seen Johnny react that way to anything," recalled a camera operator who was present that night. "He was genuinely moved, and he didn't try to hide it or make a joke. He just let himself have that human moment." After that appearance, Stewart's status was sealed. Carson would even ask producers to extend his segments, something practically unheard of. On the night of Carson's final show in 1992, Stewart was one of the few celebrities he personally called to thank, a gesture that spoke volumes about their bond. If Stewart touched Carson's heart, Bob Newhart connected with his comedic mind. The stand-up comedian turned sitcom star shared Carson's dry wit, perfect timing, and ability to find humor in life's mundane moments. "Bob was the most effortlessly funny man I know," Johnny once said, and coming from Carson, there was no higher compliment. Unlike many comedians who brought prepared bits, Newhart engaged in genuine dialogue with Carson, creating conversational jazz. "They had incredible timing," recalled a director. "It was like watching two jazz musicians who could anticipate each other perfectly." Carson often let Newhart's segments run long, even signaling the control room to delay commercials if Bob was on a roll. What Carson admired most was Newhart's humility. He treated everyone with respect, remembered crew members' names, and never acted entitled. Their relationship grew into a real friendship, even extending to golf outings, a rare privilege for celebrities in Carson's life. Then there was Burt Reynolds, the perfect partner in crime. When Reynolds appeared, viewers knew they weren't just watching an interview. They were witnessing a playful competition. "Burt gets the game. Most guests don't," Carson once said. Reynolds understood that The Tonight Show wasn't just promotion, it was entertainment. He showed up with water pistols hidden in his jacket and once ambushed Carson with shaving cream on live TV. Far from being annoyed, Johnny loved it. Reynolds' unpredictability thrilled Carson, who valued genuine surprise above all else. What sealed their friendship was Reynolds' ability to laugh at himself. Johnny had a test. Could he tease a celebrity without them getting offended? Burt passed every time, laughing at Carson's jabs about failed movies or public romances. Their friendship off-camera mirrored their on-air chemistry, with Carson often citing Reynolds as the gold standard for guest behavior. If Reynolds brought mischief, Orson Welles brought intellectual depth. Carson, who had a deeply curious side rarely seen by audiences, was genuinely fascinated by Welles. Before his appearances, Johnny would read up on history, literature, and theater just to prepare. Their conversations veered into politics, art, and magic. Welles often performed illusions on air, delighting Carson, who was a lifelong magic enthusiast. Johnny once told me those talks with Orson were some of the most satisfying moments of his career, a friend revealed. Wells's candor about both successes and failures impressed Carson, who despised Hollywood phoniness. These interviews allowed Johnny to be his truest self, not just Johnny Carson, TV host. Comedy royalty Jack Benny was another of Carson's most cherished guests. Benny had inspired Carson's entire comedic philosophy, the timing, the reactions, even the ability to get laughs from silence. He was the reason I do what I do, Carson once admitted. When Benny appeared, Carson visibly transformed into a student in awe of his master. He even repositioned the cameras to favor Benny's angles, something he never did for anyone else. Offstage, Carson kept a framed photo of Benny in his office, the only celebrity picture he displayed, symbolizing just how much the comedy pioneer meant to him. Carol Burnett, however, brought something entirely different, sunshine. When she appeared, Carson visibly relaxed, his guard dropping as if chatting with an old friend. Unlike most guests who stuck to talking points, Burnett had free rein to take conversations wherever she wanted, even flipping the script and interviewing Carson. He trusted her completely, knowing she'd always make it entertaining. Burnett's lack of pretension and genuine kindness toward the crew earned Carson's deep respect. He often extended her appearances, sometimes bumping other guests, simply because he enjoyed her company so much. Then came James Garner, whom Carson described as what a movie star should be. Unlike many leading men, Garner was authentic and unpretentious. His Hollywood stories felt grounded, focusing on friendships and mishaps rather than self-promotion. Garner's down-to-earth nature carried off camera too. He treated everyone with respect, from pages to producers. Carson valued this authenticity and often blurred his strict host-guest boundary when Garner appeared, referencing private conversations or shared experiences. Their easy camaraderie made audiences feel like they were eavesdropping on two regular guys rather than a star and a host. George Burns represented living history. Appearing on The Tonight Show well into his 90s and beyond, Burns embodied comedy's roots and longevity. Carson was awed by him, sometimes nervous before his appearances out of sheer respect. Unlike most aging performers, Burns only seemed to get funnier with age. Johnny often leaned back and let him take over entire segments, knowing he was witnessing greatness. Off camera, Carson peppered Burns with questions about vaudeville, soaking up comedy history like a student. To Johnny, Burns wasn't just a guest, he was a living masterclass. Finally, there was Lucille Ball, television royalty.